Hey, what's up guys? So today I want to go over some really basic ear training concepts. So for those of you that have done ear training before, I would move on to some of my other videos. I'll put some links in the description. But today's video is about the fundamentals of how to get started with ear training. So it's really ear training 101. Now I think people often make ear training out to be a lot more difficult and complicated than it needs to be. To me, it's a lot like learning a language. It's kind of like studying vocabulary. The very first time you ever hear a new word in a new language, that word can sound really complicated, complex, and you may not recognize the sound even if you heard someone else say that word. But as you practice saying that word out loud and you practice hearing that word, whether you're watching a movie in that language or whatnot, you start to recognize it more and more until it becomes second nature. So ear training is basically the exact same thing. So if I had to just sum up the process of training your ears, basically all it is you're just taking one sound and doing enough repetition and analyzing it in your ears enough that you just immediately recognize it once you hear it. But again, that takes some time and some repetition. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start showing you some really basic methods of training your ears. So what we're working on is relative pitch. So that being the case, I'm going to give you your first note, which for the purposes of this lesson is always going to be middle C, right here. So then after I give you that first note, the screen is going to go dark and I'm going to give you a second note. And so what you have to do is figure out what that second note is. Now today we're going to keep it really, really simple. There are only two possible notes that the second note I play can be. So our first note again is a C. Now the second note is going to be either a E or a G. Okay? So we're keeping everything within the C major scale. Now, before I show you some tricks on how to start training yourself, I'm going to give you an exercise and see how you do. So, here is your C. Consider singing that C out loud. All right, here we go. Here's the second note. Here's the C again. Now here's your next note. So, were you able to figure out what that second note was? Let me know in the comments since you can't actually answer me right now in the middle of this video. But do not be discouraged if that was tricky for you. Honestly, when I very first started doing this stuff, I couldn't figure that out either. But now I'm going to show you a way that you can start to kind of visualize things and conceptualize things sonically in your brain. So remember how I said this is all going to be in the key of C? So one way that we can conceptualize this is actually to sing up the C major scale until we land on the second note. So I gave you the C, and then I gave you a G. So I'm going to start back on the C because I'm singing it out loud. C, D, E, it's not the E, E, F, G, oh, that sounds right, G. So the way I actually got to that note, the way I figured out what it was actually by singing up the C major scale. All right, guys, now for those of you who are actually struggling to sing the C major scale, or at the very least, hear up the scale in your head, what I would recommend is going one step back before working on this exercise and actually just sitting down with the major scale and trying to sing each note out loud with it until you can really hear the differences in those notes. So I want you to try to match each note perfectly with your voice. C, okay, D, and you might waver D, try to land on it, D, E. See if you can really get each note. We could also do the G or E an octave below the C. So this is also tricky, okay, because this feels a little different sonically, but our method is the same. Now, instead of singing up the C scale to find our notes, we can also sing down the C scale to find our notes, okay? But we're still just doing the E and G. Okay, here's our C. Now, what is this next note? Okay, so first question you should ask yourself is, was that note higher or lower than the C? So, to me it sounds higher. So what I'm going to first try to do is I'm going to just sing up the C scale and see if I can find it. C, D, E, oh, E. Cool, sounds like the right note. So that time it was an E above the C. Now another quick exercise you can do if you're still struggling with this is you can take the notes that you're quizzing yourself on and just work on singing from C to that note. So for instance, and again, forgive me for my singing voice here, but C, E, C, E, C, D, E, and then maybe C, G, C, G, C, D, E, F, G. So do that until you can actually really sing them together, until you can really resonate the note and make sure that you're singing the same note as the one you're hearing on the piano or whatever instrument you're quizzing yourself with. All right, guys, just to close this out, let's do one more exercise. There's your C. There's the C again. All right, so for this one, guys, same question. Is the note above or below? So that sounds like it's below to me. So I'm going to sing down until I get it to see if it's a G or an E. C, B, A, G, no. G, F, no. E, that sounds right, it's an E. So C, E, and of course I'm singing it up an octave just because I can't sing down that low. So again, guys, it's totally okay if some of you are struggling with this to start out. That's totally normal. It takes time. Remember, it's like memorizing a vocabulary word. You have to just repeat it a million times, try to hear it. You'll start to hear it in context over time, and eventually you're just going to recognize it immediately. So be patient and just know that if you keep practicing this stuff, you are going to improve. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I hope you find these exercises really helpful. The best way to practice them is with a friend. So if you've got a friend, maybe switch back and forth quizzing each other on this. As always, please be sure to click the like button if this was helpful to you. And of course, if you haven't already, click subscribe and click the little bell to turn on notifications so you don't miss any more videos just like this one. All right, guys, thanks so much, and I will see you next time.